We're going to kick it off a few minutes early. Good morning, Mr. Joseph Lee. Good morning.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to say it's glad that you have some good news to report this morning in terms of catching this lunatic out here. But I've got my tracksuit on today because it seems like we're running a marathon. We've been talking every I think the past 4 or 5 shows we've had to talk about another active shooting situation. Obviously, you're talking about the one that happened here in Texas. It was Cleveland, Texas, I think it was. And
Yeah.
then we had the situation out in California. And it's not going away. You know what I'm saying? It's not going away until we do something about it. So obviously, capturing folks is good, but we got to get to the point where we're proactive, right? And understanding and mental health awareness. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. Just understanding the signs of depression, understanding the signs of mental illness, instability. That's going to take a village effort, right? I mean, because by the time they get to a mental health practitioner, by the time they get involved with law enforcement, oftentimes it's too late. So we've got to understand what's going on, understand the crisis. And that's why I love being on this show, because we're at least putting the information out there, talking about mental health, talking about awareness, and trying to get back to more of a sense of community, right? I know we're polarized, Democrat versus Republican and all that, but we got to remember, we're still American.
Right.
And understanding that we're in a part of this community, this Commonwealth, we can have a difference of opinion, but we've got to learn how to come together, at least on how to take care of each other, how to look out for each other. So with that being said, I'm going to give a shout out to my impact team, iccsmi.com. People can go to it. I've got my brother here from Michigan, Craig Washington. He's probably asleep down in the guest room right now, but I think Nicole's listening, his beautiful wife. So I want to say hi to them, Martha Rice, Tomas Henderson, Dr. C, all the folks that are coming on. And we're putting together some things about mental health awareness and some updates. Keon Hearns up in Michigan. We're going to be putting some things together that are going to be coming through this the station, as well as the YouTube channel, as well as some online conferences and featuring some of these issues that are going on with mental health awareness. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the issues toward the end of the day. So we got to make sure we get a little time about that, about dementia and kind of how to avoid that and give some numbers on how many people are affected by dementia. So we can hold tight on that. But, I think it's just important that we get this information out here and just understand, too, part of mental health awareness. Me and you watch the news all the time, right? Because if we're going to get on this show, we need to be able to talk facts. We got to be able to talk about what's going on, what's relevant. But one of the things I have to caution people about is watching the news too much, right? Because a lot of the news that's out here is really not news, it's more commentary, right? So if you watch the news for a period of time, you'll see that they're kind of talking about the same thing over and over again, but they're also giving their commentary, their opinions on it. And I guess in some cases, if you want to hear an opinion, that's great, but you got to be able to separate opinion from fact. The fact is something that definitely happened and in a certain context. And we don't have to keep hearing that 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times a day. So when you tune in to watch the news, that can actually become an addiction where you're just watching the news, starting to feel down, starting to feel depressed. I mean, I think I was, listening to a conversation. I think, I heard somebody say the other day that, hey, once I stopped watching the news so much, I started feeling better.
Yeah.
Why is that? If you look at the news right now, I mean, there's active shootings everywhere. Now, unfortunately, we even get the report there was an active shooter situation in Belgrade, I think it was, a teenager killing 9 folks outside of the United States. But it's just becoming far too common, It's just becoming far too common. Every week we're talking about a mass shooting situation. And we've got to keep this in the forefront so we can start to push legislators to actually do something about it. I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're Democrat. We've got to get to a point where we take action, and there's some actionable steps that we can take, right? We can demand stronger red flag laws that are more proactive than reactive. We can actually start, and we've been coming up with some good ideas. You came up with the idea that was pretty funny about a couple of days ago. So you want to say what that was, or do you want me to put it out there?
Go ahead and say it.
All right. Well, I think you said something about getting insurance. Getting insurance for if you have a firearm and you actually take the life of somebody unjustly, to actually purchase a firearm, you have to purchase insurance.
Yeah,
And and what I said to that was that I don't know what insurance company would underwrite anybody in the United States for purchasing a gun and buying insurance, but kind of deal with a catastrophic loss and mass shooting. I mean, that company would probably go out of business real quick, right?
yeah,
But I think it kind of begs the question a little bit, like how, it needs to be done. Something needs to be done monetarily to kind of offset or penalize folks and that are doing the wrong thing, but also something monetarily needs to be done to help compensate for the loss of the community, the community loss. I mean, people don't think about all the reverberations that happen when an active shooter situation happens. I mean, I went and provided support in Uvalde after the Robb Elementary shooting to the community, but we were having reverberations all the way here in San Antonio that people were directly related. You forget that those kids have family members, and those family members live in San Antonio, live in outside of Uvalde and the surrounding areas. So there were a whole bunch of reverberations to that, and some of those are financial. Obviously, they're traumatic, but there's also some financial components there. And one of the things I proposed was possibly hitting the stores with about a $500,000 fine per person killed in an active shooter situation, which will make them maybe take a little more attention and being a little more proactive before they sell that weapon.
yeah.
And maybe supporting that with having a psychological evaluation. But these are just ideas, right, that we could come up with. But we're not the ones that are getting paid to come up with these ideas. Our legislators are.
Exactly.
So instead of saying no to everything, why don't we come up with some ideas or hold people accountable that are not coming up with the ideas? We already know how to say no. We know how to say, a Second Amendment, this is a Second Amendment right, which we've talked about many times on the show, that the Second Amendment was written in the 1800s, and the technology was a musket back then. So we're not talking about the space age technology that we have right now. That legislation back then, or the Second Amendment, doesn't necessarily address the fact that we are so free that we're killing ourselves. So common sense, you can't tell me that the drafters of the Constitution would have thought we'd be so ignorant that the thing that we are protecting more than our people are guns. And one of our collaborators, I think it's Tomas Henderson, says, "I love second graders more than I love the Second Amendment." So I mean, I think that kind of puts it in place, right? So how do we deal with it? How do we move beyond conversation? Well, I think at some point we're gonna have to start talking about boycotts, or we're gonna have to start talking about doing some things financially that get people's attention. And one thing I know in this country that will get people paying attention to what we're talking about is to cut off that money stream.
Exactly.
And there's going to be some things that maybe us and some other radio stations and other folks around the country can start calling for, is a boycott of those people to support folks that aren't protecting our children. Our number one natural resource is our kids. And I said it on our last show, and I'll say it again. If we're not protecting our children, we're not protecting our future. And obviously, we're not protecting our children the way we need to, right? And on a whole front, ways, mental health, safety, and gun safety, right? We've talked about it. Now we got to be about it, right? So
Now you have in Congress right now that on they wear their congressional pin right there. They have the audacity now to pin an AR right there and supporting that. So that's telling you they're not going to change because it's right there. They got it pinned right on them. Who would pin an AR on their suit jacket or ladies on their dress, whatever they're wearing? Who will pin that on there with all the gun violence going on? You got to stop and think, like, what is your problem? Somebody brought up one point and said, maybe we need to show, I think we talked about this on a previous show, maybe they need to see the pictures, the brutal pictures of the kids being slain in school and laid right there on their desk so they could see it firsthand.
Yeah, I talked about that last show. I
Yeah,
think that a lot of these politicians are so removed from the situation that their incompetent legislation is putting out there. And which also kind of leads me to think about how we've separated ourselves from humanity. You know, these are real people that are dying, real people that have loved ones, that have parents. And what a round does to a body, a 5.56 millimeter round does to a baby's body, it explodes it. That's what it does. So to sit there and be confused and actually wear the weapon that has killed multiple children, multiple people, is an insult to humanity, not just to, we're not talking about, that's why I said this is real life stuff that we deal with. And we have to understand the context. And where is the cry out for humanity? And you got to look at things like Gregory Abbott, people like Gregory Abbott that says, you know, when 5 people get killed, that they're illegal immigrants. They're human. They're
exactly.
human. You know, regardless of their legal status in the country, somehow we're starting to move away from humanity to whatever this is. But you got to understand something. When you start twisting reality, when you start not seeing other folks as human beings, as whatever else it is that you're looking at, you start to move away from what makes us different than, you know, savages, you know, like a savage animal, right? Even animals understand life more than it seems like we do at times. You've heard stories of like lions and, you know, other animals that will take care of another animal, right?
Yeah.
That isn't even a lion, right? But they understand that that's a baby. There's something intrinsic that we understand with mammals that they need to be nurtured. And it's in the nature. So it seems like, you know, and I'm a religious man. I'm a Christian, but it seems like there's something intrinsic that's even innate in animals, that we take care of our young. Now, what is it about us as humans that are supposed to be the higher intelligent beings, that we can see children slaughtered and then have the nerve to put the AR on your chest and go to the highest levels of government and say, yeah, well, we're going to push for that right. And we're going to try to, you know, blame it on mental health issues. And we've already debunked that, right? There's mental health issues happening all over the world. This therapist right here, I've worked and treated people all over the world during COVID when we were doing virtual sessions and still doing virtual sessions. The one difference between our country and their country is that they're not having the mass shootings like we are, because they don't have the access to the firearms that we do. So we need to stop playing that game about, well, it's all right. It's all right. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right for you to have a gun. But if you do something stupid like that, we have to penalize everybody involved so that those things don't happen again. And let's start talking about how we can have some legitimate red flag laws. I think a few episodes ago, we talked about what the red flags laws were and how they work.
Yeah.
And a lot of these mass shootings that have happened, the people were able to go and legally purchase a gun before they go and commit these atrocities. So obviously that's not working if a person that's about to snap can legally go and purchase a gun, especially with the mental health deficiencies that we see. In some of these areas like Uvalde, there wasn't any mental health services available in that particular area. So they had to come all the way to places like San Antonio or whatever to get adequate medical mental health services. So putting mental health services in the communities through virtual options or whatever. There's companies that I've worked with, representative EAPs, that are providing 15 sessions. 15 sessions. They're covering 15 sessions for anybody that's in the community that's been affected by Uvalde. Confidentiality, I can't tell which company it is, but if you are in Uvalde, you can get 15 sessions a service. And, you know, just ask around, you'll find out what company is providing mental health services. And that's up to $100, $150 a session, $120 a session, that you can have that covered, right? I don't know, and let me not give the exact amount because I'm not sure how much they will cover per session. I know that it's $15 a session, and typically a therapist can charge anywhere between 70 to 120, $150 a session, depending on what therapeutic mode that they're using. So, but just know that there's help out there. We've got to provide more help out there. It's people that are trying, organizations are trying to help, but we've got to get our politicians to get on board and look at the innovative things that are being done out there to provide mental health services, and also to limit the access to people that have mental health issues or having mental health issues. If me or you see somebody that's having a mental health crisis, we should be able to call law enforcement, have that person evaluated. And most mental health professionals that are licensed, that are in this field doing this work, you can place somebody under an ED, which is an emergency detention. Law enforcement can put somebody under an emergency detention so they can be evaluated mentally during that process. Or if it's determined that they have homicidal ideation or suicidal ideation, why can't you then issue a warrant to go in, make sure they don't have access to firearms, at least for 90 days?
Yeah.
Is that too hard of a thing to put forward? I don't think so. But then again, I'm not a legislator, and I wouldn't want to have to deal with the foolishness because I don't have the patience. I don't. At the moment, I can't stand up there. I couldn't be. My hats off to the people that want to go into politics. I know I have a political science degree. I can't play the game. One of those three that got the two that got kicked out. Yeah, they'll kick me out the first day.
First day.
First day, I wouldn't make it. I would be saying point of order every second, and getting interjecting what needs to be done. We would not get forward anything. Nothing would pass until we deal with this first. Because to me, if it's affecting our kids, affecting our freedom, I went to, San Antonio has this beautiful festival called Fiesta, right? If anybody knows about San Antonio, you know what Fiesta is.
Yeah.
So yeah, family down. We came down there, me and my brother, we out here like armed guards, protecting. We can't even really enjoy the festivities because I really haven't been in a crowd that big. And I wasn't comfortable, I'll be honest with you. Just the day before, some lunatic shot up in the air or shot around Fiesta because, that's what lunatics do. And now everybody's on edge. Who's on edge? People like me. Because I've been seeing this. I know what's out here in the community, right?
Yeah.
So you mix alcohol, you mix mental illness, you mix a whole bunch of firearms. Praise God, there wasn't any worse situations that happened. And I'm glad that people were coming for a festive time. But you got to be honest. If you're not having that in the back of your mind now, you're not being honest. Most people are. Car backfire, 20 people going to almost hit the ground.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So we got to get to the point where we can get back to enjoying life again, enjoying what makes us uniquely American, being free. It's not the home of the phobic, it's the home of the brave, right? It's not supposed to be home of the paranoid. It's supposed to be home of the free, and the brave. That's what we're supposed to be about. But right now, it's not looking that way.
So let me ask you something. Two things. The first question is, we went over it before. How do we look at somebody having mental health issues? And part two of that question would be, I would think that, just my opinion, like I said, everybody's on nerves, on standby. I will believe almost 90% of the population that go out to events and stuff, they're suffering some type of mental health, because as soon as they hear a gunshot, they're running for the exit, trampling over people, dropping to the ground, and all that. So, like I said, we're on high alert on this right here.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at delusional thought processes, you look at how rational is it for your behavior of what you're doing. And I think it's arguably pretty rational to be on alert, to have your head on a swivel when you're out and about. If you see something strange or see something crazy, if you hear a noise, subconsciously, we know what's going on. And unfortunately, that's a situation that we're in. in this country. In a lot of communities, that's the case anyway. I did this thing a long time ago called Hidden PTSD. You go to my website, you'll see a video on it where a lot of kids aren't really, a lot of teachers, a lot of administrators weren't really picking up on why certain kids weren't able to focus in school. Well, part of it is because of what they're dealing with at home and the community and the hidden trauma that they're dealing with when they come in the classroom. They're not able to focus because they're just trying to survive at that point, and trying to deal with what they've just seen and been exposed to at home through violence in the home, domestic violence, or through community violence or gang violence, or whatever the case may be. So we're kind of in that situation now where, and if you understand about PTSD, you don't have to be directly affected to suffer from PTSD. You can witness a situation, be close to a situation, and suffer from PTSD. I believe it was on either MSNBC or CNN, that I think it was 84% of people have now been adversely affected by the exposure. And that's why I kind of talked about that on the news, about the news, watching the news over and over again. And you're always constantly watching about these active shooter situations. We talk about it because we're trying to bring awareness. Some folks, I know that this is the only news that they're getting is watching this show. So we try to talk about the issues, but we also talk about an action step, talk about, writing your congressmen, writing your senators, writing your local officials to kind of keep that heat on, right? So you're not just sitting there feeling like there's nothing I can do about it. But you got to understand, when you talk about mental health, right?
Yeah.
And the question was, how do you look at mental health? One of the things I try to get people to understand is your body can get sick, right? We've all had a cold before. We all have caught the flu. Most of us have had COVID, at some point now, right? So what makes you think that your mind can't get sick? The mind is just a part of the body, right? If you are somebody that has done drugs before or drinks as alcoholic, or well, hopefully not alcoholic, but if you are, this DSM back here, the diagnostic manual of mental health, every single one of those diagnostic codes have a drug-induced qualifier. So think about that for a second. If you do drugs, this would be another reason why to keep people from doing drugs, is that drugs can lead to mental illness. And we know that, right? But then to see that in the DSM, when I went through that, I was like, wow, every one of these diagnoses can be brought on by drugs, right? We all will suffer some type of mental illness at some point in our life. The difference is, do we know what to do about it once it happens? And also, can we recognize it? Or let me rephrase that. Can we recognize that it's a mental illness? And then will we be able to act and do something about it? So bringing awareness and understanding that it's a common thing. We all go through anxiety, but what's a healthy level of anxiety? We all go through depression. Some people have seasonal depression. Some people don't know they're going through depression. What does it look like? Well, if you lose interest in things that you normally are pretty excited about. I like karaoke. If all of a sudden you never see me at karaoke, I'm not talking about karaoke anymore, that might be off. That might be off for me, right? If I suddenly start giving away, I'm a video gamer, believe it or not, right? If I start giving away all my video games, which are very expensive, that might be something to think about. Why is he doing that, right? Or if somebody's normally down and all of a sudden they really get real happy. Why do you think that might be an issue, Ron? Just curious. I'll throw it out there. Since you always asking me questions, I'm gonna ask you a question.
If somebody automatically just all of a sudden they were so laid back and all of a sudden they're happy.
Yeah, they get real, they're just real happy. And I'm not saying, I'm talking about, they were going through, so they were down, they were depressed. Mm-hmm. But the next day, all of a sudden, everything is roses, everything is great, everything is sunny. Is that a good or a bad sign?
I would take it if I know that person very well. It's a bad sign. I need to talk to them, find out what is going on with them. Why are you switched so much like that? Because I want to know. Mm-hmm. Because that is not your style. So what happened? You start drugs or something,
Right. Could be drugs, or it could be that they've decided to go ahead and take their life. And they know that the pain is going to end that they're going through. My wife told me one time, my wife's an RN, and she told me one time, this lady, matter of fact, came in one day and she got her medication. She was all happy and giddy. And she said, well, such and such, I can't give the name. Such and such, why are you so happy today? She said, oh, because I'll be dead on Thursday.
Whoa.
And it's Wednesday. All right. So understand mental illness does not look necessarily what you think it looks like, but you got to understand what it is and understand what to do with it. So I'm not sure I can't, this was years ago. This was right. This was about 20 years ago when that happened. But that always stuck with me. You know, when a person decides to take their life, you got a very short window where you can do something. So you got to pay attention to people, those seniors, that person that's kind of off to themselves and you don't know kind of what they're thinking. You better find out
Yeah.
before they let you know what they're thinking. And you may not like the outcome. People usually implode or explode or a combination thereof.
And
Like
the workplace has been a common spot for people when they explode. They go back to their previous jobs and go for the people who they feel in the heart did them wrong.
yeah, and I've been kind of studying a lot of these situations, right? And there's a pattern. It's a pattern for you to see, and it doesn't take. You don't have to be. What was that old show, Columbo? You don't have to be a real high skilled detective to figure it out. If a person gets fired or is about to get fired, they're probably going to be unstable. That kid or that person that's introverted, that is getting bullied, that's a social misfit, keep an eye, check on them. Don't be the one that bullies them because guess what? When he snaps, the bullseye is going to be on your back. Tell your kids, look, don't you participate in no bullying in school or online, right? Understand what David's law is. I've had colleagues, I've had friends that understand that when you're in a chat and you say something like, oh, go kill yourself. Man, kids can be really cruel. We know that
Yeah.
going through school, but in the cyber world, oh man, they go hard. You know what I'm saying? They go really hard. Understand that with David's law, all you have to do is say something in that strand. And if one of those kids harm themselves, your child is going to have a court date.
Yep.
All right. So, I had somebody tease me one time saying, I'm a helicopter parent. You better believe it. Not only am I a helicopter parent, I'm a Black Hawk. I'm coming in and I'm coming in hot. You know what I'm saying? And if I
Yeah.
catch, they talked me into getting my daughter a cell phone. She doesn't have access to that unless she's being monitored. Yes, I check her text. Yes, I find out who she's talking to. No, I don't let my child just get on here unsupervised and do whatever. Why? Because I'm not crazy and I know what's going on. See, that's back to that village conversation that we used to have back in the day. You didn't have privacy when you were in school, when you were younger back in the day, unless you were changing your clothes or going to the bathroom. Other than that, those doors are supposed to be open and you subject for everything to be reviewed and checked out at any point in time.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's how it kept us from being crazy. You knew if somebody was off because you got busted. And remember back in the day, what was crazy? What did they say? Oh, that boy's off.
Yeah. Or he's special.
Or he's special.
Yeah.
we know quite a few people around us that are special around, so I don't know. But we're gonna leave that alone. But with that being said, how do you know that somebody's off? See, there's a lot of wisdom in what what a lot of the older folks used to do and say. When you say somebody's off, you got to know what on is. You got to know what they should be doing. You got to know what is going on. And if you don't recognize when somebody's going through something or abnormal, then you don't know how to respond to them. So what we used to do is just put people aside, to put them in that room or put them somewhere where they would be isolated in a way. And I'm not saying that's the solution. What I'm saying is at least recognize that somebody is quote unquote off and see how you could render some help or get them to some help. Could be autism, could be depression, could be a lot of different things. If you know what normal is, you should know what off is. And then we got to do something about it, not just sit there and wait for a situation to get worse. Just like physical health, mental health is the same way. If you ignore it, it's going to get worse.
So,
and unfortunately, that's our go-to, and especially in the African American community, color community, people of color. What we do is, we go to different places. We think it's going to get better. I'm not saying you can't take it to the Lord. That Jesus is the perfect counselor. I get it, but don't go to your pastor necessarily when it's a mental health issue, because people don't understand this. And a lot of pastors maybe need to hear this. If a person comes to you and they're in crisis, pray for them, but then direct them to a therapist.
yeah.
Because if they leave your office, matter of fact, if you see a person for under I don't know what pastor I'm talking to right now, but maybe you need to pay attention, because if they come to your office more than twice about depression and they go and take their life after they've talked to you, you can be brought up on charges. You can be sued. Or not maybe brought up on charges, but you can be sued.
Yeah.
You don't have any malpractice insurance. I have to have malpractice insurance. And thank God I've never had to use it, because I don't play about that. If I think somebody's unstable, I'm ringing the bell.
Loud and clear.
I'm going to ring the bell.
Yeah.
I would, every one of my sessions start with, if you feel like harming yourself, others, somebody harming you, or you harming somebody else, we're going to get you some help.
Yeah.
I'm going to breach confidentiality and I'm going to get you some help. And I've never had a person regret me getting that help. Now, they might be mad at first because they're about to go in for a mental health evaluation and they're going to be there for about a week or sometimes longer. But when they get out, the word is always thank you.
Yeah.
So, people that are in crisis, and they need help, don't think that you're snitching on them or nothing like that. You could be saving their life and other people's lives as well.
Which brings to this question. When a 5-year-old, just saying, is diagnosed as being depressed, I take offense to that. One reason, as being a parent, is my job as a parent to make sure I'm teaching that child. But if the child become depressed and withdrawn at 5 years old, I'm just saying, some of their responsibility, most of their responsibility on his lifestyle and his parents for developing that kid to be withdrawn and depressed. So how do you address things like that? If somebody came to you and said, my kid, 5 or 6, 7 years old, is very depressed. First of all, I think you got to dig in the background, find out the reason why and how they come to him being like that. I'm just saying what I'm saying, but you're the one out there that see this every day. What would you do in that situation?
You said it perfectly. Ask questions. Because at 5, a child sometimes doesn't really know how to articulate their feelings. But if they say the word depressed, have them explain what that means, if they're sad or they're feeling down or whatever. And then also ask them the question, why? Are they being teased at school? Is something going on? Because usually children don't go through depression or sadness for no reason. So what is going on when a child is feeling down and it's consecutive, is ongoing, then there's usually an underlying cause. So you have to be a detective. Observe, ask questions, observe your child, see what's going on, watch their circle, watch how people are, how his friends are or her friends are interacting with them. Right. I have to say it now, because we've got, so many competing voices for the souls and the minds of our children. And, there's now the gender issues that we have to look at. And trust me, the messages are out there. Our kids are now having to question things that they shouldn't even be thinking about into their teenagers. And even then, at a teenager, it should be guided in terms of, you've taken a class of sex ed and what's normal and what's not normal, what you should do and waiting and all that. These kids are now having conversations before 10 about gender and if they want to present as a boy or a girl or non-binary. And that's a whole other thing that we're going to talk about and bring up later on. I've got one of my practitioners is going to get into that. One of our life coaches are going to get into that in one of the conferences, because this is a serious thing. There's people and there's kids that are the conversations, and that's what I'm saying. If you're not watching what's going on and how kids are interacting, your child could be told that they're depressed and sad. So then they start taking that on. Children are very impressionable, but sometimes there's a valid reason. In the cases of abuse, a child can be depressed or sad. And in cases of neglect, a child surely can be depressed or sad. So there's other reasons out there. But like you said, as a concerned parent, the first thing to do is to start asking questions. Observe your child.
Right.
Don't let them just go get on a video game and not ask questions and talk to our child. Now, I know this generation, these younger generations, they're very much involved in electronics. They're very much involved with, cell phones and social media and all that, which I don't think that's really a good move, to be honest with you. The data is clear. The suicide rate and the depression rate skyrocketed when social media hit the scene. Look it up. Look it up for yourself. If people, so understand that if you are welcoming that environment into your home, you're welcoming in a lot of risks, because that's not a real world. You got so many filters. Everybody wants to put, their best face on. Everybody's having a great time. But if you're going through depression and everybody's having a great time, what's wrong with me? Maybe I don't belong. 2 school systems that I've worked with, right after I left, let me put it this way. I've know of suicides have happened with young kids, with young folks. And it's one of the worst feelings in the world, especially knowing that I feel like it could have been prevented with more of awareness and understanding of what mental health is, and that there is help out there. People don't understand it and maybe don't know this, but mental health treatment with a licensed therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist is about 90% effective. 90%. And I'll put that number up against any medical profession.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a licensed therapist. Somebody's using scientifically established techniques. Not just, hey, this feels good because I think this worked with my aunt. No, that's not, there should be a process. That's why you have a license, because they're practitioners.
But you brought up a point that this device right here, you can't see it, but this device right here is what's going on to kids nowadays. That's their thought process, that's their answer and everything. But this weekend, me and my wife took a trip and drove 4.5 hours there and 4.5 hours back. That was one of the best conversations that we had, talking about things and about each other, our likes and dislikes and all that stuff. We just didn't have to. We just started talking and airing things out that wasn't really a big problem, but we just talked about things. And that was one of the best weekends I had, those combination of 9 hours riding with my wife and having a conversation, which goes back to what you said about social media. I brought that up today, that why do you have 5,000 friends, and when it's your birthday, only 50 reply back to you?
That's because you don't have 5,000 friends.
Exactly what I brought up with that right
you got 4,800 witnesses that may decide to click a like if they're paying attention to what you posted. I did something, it's going to sound crazy, but on my birthday last year, we had a great trip with some very close friends. I even consider them extended family, to Padre Island. I didn't post. It. Now, I posted a couple pictures maybe a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And actually, to be honest with you, I was going to try to post more right after, but not during my birthday. And I did that for a reason. I wanted to see who was actually going to say happy birthday. Because if you're a friend of mine, right, it's right on Facebook if it's my birthday.
Get a notice and says that. But yeah, you see,
now I did get some calls. I did get some people that told me happy birthday, and that's it. But I don't want to live. Yeah, thank you. I don't want to live, and you should not live on social media. It's a fake world. But too many of our kids, and so you got to understand something. I've talked about this. I'm glad you brought this up because or Howard brought up. I don't care. I'm glad it's brought up. Social media is funny because it's actually a place where social skills go to die. People are a lot of these kids, even my daughter included, she gets on that screen, she forgets how to FaceTime with real people. And we have to tell her, hey, you speak when somebody speaks to you. You talk. Now she talks. Oh boy, does she talk to me? And mom, thank God, right? And I want to hear it. But when she gets around somebody else that's new, and I was kind of the same way when I was younger, I would size you up to see, hey, where's this person coming from? So I'm not saying that, but when it's time to be sociable, you need to have social skills. How are you going to do an interview? What if your job, if you're in leadership, you're going to have social skills. Now, the only social skills you have is clicking likes on Facebook or whatever they do on Instagram or Twitter. I don't know how that's really functioning. And you got to understand that's not a real world. And some of these kids have grown up. See, me and you, we can remember, because we're old, we can remember a time before social media.
Yeah.
Some of these kids have grown up, and the only way they get affirmation is when somebody clicks a like. So can you imagine you put some word of wisdom, or you got your favorite shirt on or whatever, and nobody likes it? Oh my God. That could put them in a crisis. They can go into depression because nobody likes my shirt. Maybe nobody likes me anymore. I put a comment on Facebook, I may not check it for 2 months. I don't, if you notice, Ron, I don't really care if you like what I say or not.
Yeah.
But check it. Make sure, understand if it's fact or not.
Exactly.
You got, and that's actually a social skill in the inverse. I can't be so concerned about you liking me. I can't be so concerned about you, because I understand something. If I'm very confident in who I am and what I'm doing, some people are not going to like that right off the bat. So I can't be so concerned with somebody not liking me. Love Jesus. That's what I need you to do. Don't worry about me. I got enough love in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My family, I got my friends, I got love, and I got genuine love. So I'm good. Now, I mean, I'm open to have associates and all that, but understand something. You got to get to a certain point in your life where you know how to socialize with people. You got to feel confident with yourself. You got to learn how to love yourself, and then you can learn other folks.
Yeah.
Right. Then you can be healthy. But now, I'll be honest with you, I will go to war quick. And I'm working on that. I keep attorneys, you know what I'm saying? Because I know, and that's just a whole other discussion. Being an African-American male in this society means you got to know, look who's on the back of my wall. These are the people I look up to. That's my wall of that's my where the presidents they had that where their heads are up there. Those are my presidents.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my presidents, and one of them was the president, right?
Yeah.
So, and then of course, you know, people in my community, all the males that were in Auburn Hills that I came up with, those are my role models. You know, Dr. Franks, Mr. Moore, my grandfather, Mr. Lee, Mr. Smart, you know, this name, Mr. Todd, you know, all these folks that invested in Mr. Gray, Mr. Robinson, you know, all these guys invested in me.
Yeah.
So that's why I can invest in the mentorship, the guide right program, whatever, because other guys invested in me and said, you know what, I'm gonna take some time to make sure that this young man's on the right path. And you've got to understand, you got to know who you are first so that you can invest in other folks. And I'll be honest with you, we're under attack. Males are under attack, not just physically, but also psychologically. Understanding what manhood is under attack. In this non-binary world, raising a young man to be a man is offensive to them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to stand in the gap. I will always do that. I don't care about being politically correct when it comes to that. If you have a right to be whatever you want to be, but if you send your child to me, I'm going to teach them how to be a man in a mentorship program. In a counseling situation, it's a little bit different. I got to make sure that they're okay mentally, but I'm going to probably put them to somebody that's dealing with, you know, non-binary or whatever, that's their area. I don't understand. I'm still understanding. I'm still learning what that means. But for me, I'm a Christian, so I believe in uncompromising truth and unconditional love. So if it ain't in here,
yes,
then I'm not going to deviate too far from that. I know what's in here. I know it's in the DSM-5. I get it. But I also understand that there's an overlap. Spiritual and psychological issues sometimes go run hand in hand. I think there was a scripture back when Jesus saw a man that was hearing voices. And he said, what's your name? And the man responded by saying, Legion. There are many. So there's many voices, right? What does that sound like? Schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it. I'm a therapist, but also in my private practice, I do have Christian counselors. And I have to admit, those folks that have a faith, Christian in particular, they seem to do a lot better, a lot quicker. Do the research, figure it out. So with that being said, I have to put that in the context of what's going on in this world. And the more we move away from foundations, and I'm not talking about how the Bible has been, because there's a whole bunch of trauma. When I pick up that Bible, there's some people that are traumatized by that because there's a such thing as religious trauma. We're talking about all kinds of things today. All right.
Yeah.
And there's people that need to heal from that. When you've had Bishop Pimp standing up there in the pulpit. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna call some of them out. If they driving around in a big car and ain't putting nothing back in the community, if you've been paying tithes for 15 years and you suddenly get some hard times and you can't pay your mortgage and they can't help you out, Bishop Pimp up there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can call all them out too. And if you got a problem with it, you got to call my office. I'm more than happy to address you because I'll call you out and say it right to your face. That's a trauma, and I've seen a lot of people affected adversely from that.
Yeah.
So, but I did want to get into one other thing because this is an issue. We're talking about mental health and awareness. This is something near and dear to my heart, which is dementia. Because my grandfather who had dementia, Alzheimer's. Say again.
Yeah, before you get into that, I know we won't get into that.
Okay.
There was somebody that brought up back in the days in schools, the counselors who whatever will diagnose the kid in there and give them Adderall.
Who did
that? Some schools were doing that. They said your kid needed to be on Adderall. So what I'm getting at, how is it medication takes over mental illness when you're not talking to a therapist?
First of all,
like we do know that they have these kids on medication looking like freaking zombies.
Well, that's another side issue. Ron, see, I'm trying to keep us on time, man. You gonna have me. No, don't go complaining when we go over it. Bringing up all these issues. And
Hey,
here you
I'm
go
used to it
again.
now. It's in our DNA. I'm used to it, brother.
It is. I'm trying to get to my dementia data that I'm trying to put out here for mental health, and you're gonna make me go this route. All right. So first of all, if you saw my facial expression, there should never be a school counselor diagnosing anybody with anything. Okay. I don't care if I was a school counselor and I also was an LPC, but in the capacity of a school counselor, I'm not diagnosing anything. I can refer you to a therapist that will then diagnose you, and then, or a psychiatrist or psychologist. And then only a psychiatrist has the ability to diagnose medications. So if you got a school counselor that's saying that your child needs Adderall, he's out of scope.
Yep.
Number one, or she is out of scope. I can say this person is exhibiting these traits, and he's as a licensed therapist. If I haven't done an intake and actually can establish the parameters of ADHD, and just so you know, you're supposed to have a scan. I forget what's called, a CAT scan, or it's. I used to recommend people go and get a CAT scan, and to see if the neurons are firing consistent with ADHD. So it's not just what you think, because what a lot of people would do is say that it's ADHD when it's a classroom management issue. You know what I'm saying? If it's a classroom management issue, and a lot of times our kids of color, are hyperactive. But that doesn't mean that they are have ADHD. It just means that you're not managing our kids. When I used to I used to work in the schools. When I come in the room, it's a little bit different. That young man that normally would not pay attention, he'll sit down when I'm in the room, because he knows I'm going to have a talk with you. And if I had that talk with you, I'm gonna go talk to your mom. And he knows if I talk to his mom, it ain't gonna be a good night.
That's right.
Now, if you have ADHD, it don't matter if I'm in the room or not. It's just still gonna be hyper, because you can't control that. But again, you have to go in, and I would when I would have a parent say, well, I think my child has ADHD. Okay, well, how long have you observed him? Well, the teachers just say he's that. Well, okay, what does that mean? What are the classroom management issues in that classroom? Sometimes it's a classroom management issue. Sometimes it is a medical issue. But without the proper evaluation, you can't say a child has ADHD. And the last thing you want to do is take a child and provide them medication when that's not the issue. And yes, that does happen frequently. There's people that will go to their doctor and say, oh, my child, the teacher says my child, or the counselor said my child has ADHD. And some practitioners will will give them Adderall just based off that. That's not the correct way to go about it. If you have ADHD, hyperactivity, the brain fires a certain way, and you need to go someplace and have it evaluated, and they will let you know if, yes, that's consistent with ADHD.
Yeah.
So there it is. Don't go off anybody's word. Have somebody observe your child. Maybe your child is supposed to be hyperactive. That's what's going to get him or her to the next level in life. You're just doping your child up. And then what happens? Oh, okay, well, I have to have these drugs. So what's another drug that's consistent with that? Oh, marijuana, weed. That kind of calms me down. So now you go from Adderall to maybe smoking weed. And you've contributed to that. So I don't know. I'm not saying that that happens all the time, but it does happen. Okay. Yeah. So with that being said, so now can I get to my dementia data?
You can now, sir. I know we always go from one extreme to the other, but that's what we do sometimes.
That's it. Now you only gave me 9 minutes. So, I'm trying to keep us on track, Ron. Trying to keep us on track. All right. So dementia. All right. So we got, wow, how many people do you think have dementia? And we're going to go on like 2021. We're going in the 2021 data. How many people in this country do you think have dementia? And maybe I need to define what dementia is. It's actually a cognitive impairment where memory loss and things start happening. But how many people do you think have dementia?
I
back in
heard it.
2021.
I heard it. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it's a lot, and it's happening now more in younger people than it is in the elderly. I do know that that report came out last week. I didn't get the numbers down, but I'm pretty sure you're going to enlighten me what the numbers are.
Yeah. In 2021, it was 6.2 million adults living with dementia. And I'm not sure. I think that might be here in the United States. Doesn't say. All right. And so this is an issue that is going on. And like you said, it is getting worse, right? And one of the things that I'm reading about and understanding is about dementia is that a lot of it is, contributing. Dementia a lot of times contributes or actually turns into Alzheimer's. And so to kind of fight that, one of the things people are pushing now is the diet. And I'm not telling people to take this diet. You need to talk to a physician first to make sure that this diet works for you. But I want people to start looking at the Mediterranean diet, which is less red meat, and more vegetables, more fruits and things of that nature. And if you look at it, I'm on my way to Japan. For those that don't know, that more will be coming up on that soon. But the people that live in Japan live some of the longest living people are living in Japan. They have more what this Mediterranean diet looks like. Cognitively, they're doing better. Health-wise, they're doing better. So, take a look at, the Mediterranean diet, the benefits of it, and how to reduce some of the things that cause dementia with it, which is, eating more red meats, alcoholism or drinking alcohol, that contributes to dementia. And we already talked about that, about drugs and how that can lead to, mental illness. Everything in that DSM has a drug-induced qualifier,
Yeah.
right? And alcohol is a drug, right? So, the Mediterranean diet, in particular, it features, and I'm just reading this directly, less meat, especially less red meat, processed meat, in favor of fish, fewer simple carbohydrates, greater amounts of monounsaturated fats, notably olive oil, and significantly more plant-based foods, not just fruits and vegetables, but whole grains and nuts. Okay. So if you want to fight dementia, you might want to take a look at this, all right, as a contributing factor in changing your diet. And it's not just for dementia, but it's more for processing food better and living a healthier diet. So we talk about mental health. I'm a firm believer in your physical health contributing to your mental health, and that's a big push now in mental health, is talking about a wellness and the mind, body, soul, spirit, connection. Yeah. So take a look at that, the Mediterranean diet, and just understand that you need to make some changes. And also, I know for a fact that alcohol also contributes to dementia as well. So you can take a look at that.
And when you brought that up, my last doctor visit, I go get a full physical every year. And the past 2 years, when I go back there, the first thing they do, they hit me with 3 words to remember. And I'm saying, you serious, right? Yeah. I said, you want me to remember 3 words after the visit? She said, yeah. I said, okay, no problem. Went through all that, everything I had to do. About 20 minutes later, she asked me to repeat those 3 words. I looked at it, I repeated them. She said, okay. So went to my next visit this year, the exact same thing. And well, it's so funny. They had the words written out already. I said, you want me to repeat something that I said on the last visit? And she looked at me and said, you remember the words? I said, yeah, that's what you asked me on the last visit here. Okay, you passed that test. I'm gonna get another 3 words. So they are checking me out because of my age and want to see if I fit that category of dementia and all that stuff. And I repeated back to her. I think that's a good idea. I think it's called what's called a consciousness test or something like that. And I felt when I went on to my wife, they tested my memory. And she said, oh, do they know you got a memory? I said, apparently not.
Well,
Because
Ron, I think they know you're crazy. And so they're just trying to figure out the level of your illness or whatever. And I'm just playing.
yeah,
That's exactly it, right? So you just have some good practitioners that are checking to see if there's any cognitive decline. As we get older, our brains naturally shrink. So there's some folks that didn't have much to work with in the first place. So never mind, let me stop. But so with that being said, it's good to check up on these things and be proactive. So hopefully somebody will take a look at that Mediterranean diet, make the changes that they need. I know I've tried to cut back on red meat and things. And if you notice, when you change your diet, give it a couple weeks and you start to feel better. Our brother, our friend Glenn, he had me on this Kajava shake or whatever. And I lost from just a few weeks of just drinking this Kajava shake, man. I lost a lot of weight, started feeling a lot better. I had more clarity in my mind. I'm not saying I went back, 20 years, but I felt a lot better. You know what I'm saying? I think I dropped like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Quick. Because what happens when you're eating the wrong stuff, your body just stores it.
Right.
It just says like, I don't know what to do with this stuff, so I'm just set it over here. And where it sets is, where, the spots. You know what I'm saying? But that heavy feel that you have, we in the African American community, we call it the itis, right? Where we get the itis.
Yeah.
But actually, we're not too far off from what it is, because itis is a medical term that also implies, let me hit you with some knowledge, inflammation. Whenever you hear itis behind something, it means inflammation. So what we're actually doing when we eat our soul food and this and the other, we're inflating things that should not be inflated. And fat does some things. It does things to the liver. It causes cirrhosis. It causes a lot of different things that we have to be mindful of. So by changing your diet, it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. By changing your diet, you change how the body functions. And guess what? The brain is a part of the body. When your body works better, it starts letting you know, like, hey, I'm going to let you get a little better sleep now because you're doing what I need.
Right.
The reason a lot of people feel so miserable, and I'm talking to somebody today, I feel like I'm preaching. The reason your body feels bad is because you're putting the wrong stuff inside of it. Uh-oh, I think my editor might be telling me something. Hold on.
Oh.
So inflamed. Okay. Yeah. So I said inflated. The editors told me I need to say inflamed. So yeah. So that's what itis means, is inflamed. Expanded. That's what itis means. My editor's always trying to tell me something. All right. So with that being said, we really have to watch what we're eating, because it does affect your physical, that thing that we joke about, where we're feeling so, we have to go to sleep and all. These are not good traits. And my wife tells me all the time, get up, let's go walking, let's go do this, let's go do that. I need to try to listen to that more as well, right? Because when we start to slow down, everything slows down. Your cognitive processes included. So stay active, stay moving. One of the things about Japan is not just about the diet that people are staying healthy, is because they walk a lot.
Yes, they do.
They walk a lot. So stop parking so close to the store. Don't drive around the parking lot 20 times to get that spot, 8 steps, park a little further or walk on in. Increase your steps. Go up and down the stairs a couple times more a day, just because. Find ways of getting more active and changing your diet, and you're going to increase your physical activity. One of the main things I tell people that I'm helping them treat with depression is to get physically active. I tell them to, go swimming. Start swimming some laps. Because I know that it's going to get that cognitive function. When you hit that water, you can't focus on anything but water. Well, you can, but water is going to make you pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So, and then when you get done, a little magical thing called endorphins are going to start firing. and
Right.
then you're going to feel better. And that's why after you get done with the run or a workout, you feel better because your body has natural ways of helping you feel better, helping you feel energized, and it will reward you with, what you need in terms of clarity, better night's rest, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's just something we all have to push towards, right? So there
Yeah.
we go. For mental health, there it is.
And see, you brought that up. I remember I was telling you that my back was bothering me, my knees was bothering me, and all that stuff. I went back to the doctor. I dropped 22 pounds. It didn't occur to me when he asked me what level of pain am I in. And I turned my head around. I said, none. My back wasn't hurting. My knees weren't hurting. And I said, wait a minute. I'm not used to not having that pain in my back all the time. So I changed my lifestyle and eating just like you said. And
Yeah.
and it works out. And I'm gonna go back to the drinks, the Kajava. I was messing with Glenn with that. I said, so what are you putting in it? I said, what you I'm putting in it? He said, well, you talking about you come out, you're energized and all this stuff. You're not putting a little something in there to kickstart yourself, are you? Ronald, that's what he used Ronald with me. I mean, you sound like my mom and dad. When they use your first name, Ronald, if they use your full name, you was
That's
in
right.
trouble. But
Yeah, using your government name, man. So
yeah,
yeah, I know the secret ingredients that he puts in there because I've actually put some in myself, but it's nothing wrong with what we putting in there. It's just natural stuff, right?
I know
Yeah.
he's got
So
a cabinet full of peanut butter in there, so I know that's
that's it. That's the secret ingredient is the peanut butter, man, and that does it.
yeah,
That
yeah,
adds a little flavor to it, and it helps it to stick to you a little better.
yeah.
But matter of fact, I'm gonna have to make my Kajava shake today, man. That's outstanding. But now that we've gone over time, since
All
I
right,
was trying to keep us on time today for once, because we normally that's not even our thing, right?
yeah.
But so we know how you got to end it. Your actions speak so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying. So that's it. Always look at how people treat you. What they do is more important than what they say, but what they say lets you know some things too. So pay attention to that, and we're gonna close with that.
All right, Joseph, appreciate it. I'll be talking to you later on, and you
All
take
right,
care. Hey, thank you for that word of wisdom today.
no problem.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.